Chat about this. Good morning to you, Dada Moloto. Let's begin with the statement that you've released, which I've gone through, and I think it's quite engaging and quite interesting. Part of what you say is what we said as well here, is that South Africans are currently gripped with the debate around the land question, of course, as there's a growing momentum to find mechanisms to resolve this issue. Let's go through where your party stands, the PAC stands on the matters.
Sure, thank you. Look, the PAC position on land is well known historically, that the fundamental question in our country and for our struggle has been about land, because what went wrong in our politics, what wrong in this country is the dispossession of land of the majority of our people by the colonialists, and therefore that is what needed to be addressed. And when you address that, you are addressing the social, the economic, and the cultural aspect. You are restoring the dignity of the people of this country. And we are establishing a sense of a nationhood. Without the land, the African people, since the issue of the dispossession and the repossession of land was not addressed at all, our people continue to be poor. Our people begin to be unemployed. You cannot hope that the economy will at any stage employ everybody. Now, by redistributing, by restoring the land and redistributing it, we believe we will have an outcome desirable in this country for the majority of our people. Our people will go back into a situation where they use land to develop themselves, to produce food. Will eliminate poverty, will eliminate unemployment by addressing the question of the land. And if we do that correctly, it has to be done. Our submission was quite clear, is that Section 29, we need to introduce a Land Act in this country, which regulate the land. We cannot just talk about the property as if everything is and we know what went wrong. And we know that our people were all congested into the 13% of the land, when 87% of the land was actually allocated to the white people in this particular. That's what fundamentally need to be addressed if we have to get a nation in this country right.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Moloto, I don't think that anyone in their right mind can really dispute the fact that there was this dispossession of land that you speak of, and the fact that people were removed. It's a fact, it's historical, it's there. But unfortunately, I suppose, we're sitting in a situation where the laws pertaining to the ownership of land are so strict that there is no alternative really of getting that land back, so to speak, without amending and changing those particular laws, which have obviously helped the minority to continue to hold on to the land that is not rightfully theirs. Moving forward, though, without doing it illegally, what do you suppose should be the ways and means to go about doing so within the legal framework? And I suppose I'm then asking you what your views are as we have these conversations about amending Section 25, for instance, of the Constitution. Do you believe that we must stay within the legal ambits, or do you believe those legal ambits are exactly what is stopping a majority of South Africans from really getting back that land which was wrongfully taken in the first place?
Yes. The PAC position on Section 25 is that is critical, because it's the section that denies the majority of the people access to the land. That maintains status quo. It reinforces the 1913 and 1936 Land Act. It basically is one section that is diabolic in our political system, in our economic system, and in our social setup. Now, it needs to be addressed. We are saying that it must be removed in its entirety and replaced by what we called the Land Act. Land Act must define how the land must be distributed to the citizens of this country. We believe as the PAC that land is fundamental human rights and it's a constitutional rights, and the people of this country were given land by God so that they can able to support and sustain themselves. And the politician's duty is to address this aspiration and the need of the people properly. Now, we should not avoid it. And it's, to the PAC, it's not a black and white issue. It's an African question. It is also a South African question. And it will be unfortunate if somebody can then begin to say, I'm white, I'm black. We are said, we are confronted in this country by this question of landlessness, by poverty, by unemployment, and its the fundamental cause of all this evil is the land and the congestion of our people into the spaces of which created by the dispossession.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I found it quite interesting as I was reading your statement, in your reaction to the issue of expropriation, restitution and repossession of the land in the country. You started off by addressing, the myth that Africans, and I'm going to say black Africans, yes, which is not what you said, but that Africans cannot farm. Why did you see this as the most important place to start your statement? And let me tell you why I was a little bit concerned. Yeah. If something is yours, you don't need to explain what you're going to be using it for and yes, what you had been using it for. If someone steals my vehicle, I don't have to explain what I'm using it for. Yes. If I want to drive it into a wall every day, it's my business. It's what I do with it. Sure. Why did you feel you had to sort of explain what black Africans are doing with the land and the fact that black Africans can farm land? That, to me, is not really an issue, and I battle to understand why there needs to be a justification from Africans to explain why they need their stolen land back. It's your stolen land, it's yours.
Exactly. Look, there have been excuses. On the general debate on land, people are beginning to say, but there will be food security with this and that the black people, the African people cannot work on land, cannot do this and that. Right. Now, that's a myth which we must dispel. And in our statement, we are basically saying it is wrong, it is an insult to basically come from that narrative.
We've heard another political party, COPE, we've heard Musiwa Lekota talking about, he seems to be anti what you are about, which is getting yes, the land back and land restitution. What are your views on statements made by Ndata Lekota to keep things basically as they are, the status quo? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but this is someone who effectively disagrees with your statements. Sure. What would your response then be to the COPE leader? Yeah, so
normally the PAC doesn't want to comment on other political party statement.
They all do.
However, we find it to be extremely strange. Yeah. Because if you're a South African, particularly live at this stage, you must know your history. Where do you come from? How things happen to be where we are. Why the majority of people are congested, are the way they are. Socially, economically, and politically. And address that issue. You cannot be in politics today without understanding where the hardship, where the pains, where the economy, where the social millennium originated came from. Now, therefore, we find it to be a very strange person, particularly coming from the African community. Now, we feel that he needs to go and do his political homework. Maybe he's in a wrong space.
In the wrong space. All right. So one of the things that you also put down in your statement on the issue of expropriation was that it does seem that those who speak out on the issues of getting the land back, that they are then viewed as being too radical, and I suppose that's the fault of us as the media perhaps. They're viewed as extremists and anti-white. Why do you think that this is the case?
Yeah, look, this is how we were indoctrinated and brainwashed as a nation, as people. We do not just understand as the PAC, how did we really think that the politics in this country without addressing the question of land are normal. Because there have always been very abnormal politics. You see, we cannot pursue politics of appeasement. So that we make certain section of people happy and the rest of the community and the nation unhappy. The sufferings, the social pains that our people are going through every day where majority of the people who are in parliament have been elected by these poor people. But in parliament, there's no agenda, there's no item that seems to address the pains and the social hardship of the majority of the people. Mm-hmm. Now, PAC has been regarded as a radical party, to some extent as a racist, but simply because we have chosen to address the issues which reflect the day-to-day lives of the suffering and the economy and the social setup. We said in order for the politics to be, the purpose of politics is to serve the people of the nation and the majority in particular.
I'm going to take you up on something, Dr. Moloto, and you might be angry with me as you leave the studio.
Yes,
but I really want to challenge you on something historical.
Yes.
I mean, the PAC and the ANC, you know, during apartheid was such an enormous force. There is no question about the fact that the ANC and the PAC together were able to uproot such a big and evil system like apartheid.
Sure.
Yet, and I'm going to say this, you're pointing to the fact that there is no agenda item now to address the hardships of the majority. You were able to uproot apartheid. You were able to dismantle the system. Yet you failed, as the PAC and the ANC together, to address those issues regarding the land, to address those issues of, you know, the unfairness with which the majority had been treated. Is that not something that you would look back on as a party and go, we messed up there? Are you not taking some kind of accountability? What was negotiated then when you were uprooting apartheid and when you were having all those talks? What did you negotiate when now we sit here and we're still having these conversations in 2018?
Sure.
We still don't have the land. What did you fight for?
Exactly. Look, I think that's a good question. You will remember, though, that the PAC was chased out of the CODESA.
Yes.
Purely on this question.
Yes.
And at the middle of the night, because it was been seen as a spoiler. And at that time, we were saying, but having fought, having had leaders and cadres dying in the trenches to fight for the liberation of their people and the land, you only now compromise and decide that you'll get the people free, but you don't free their land. How are these people going to then sustain and support themselves? We are going to suffer 20 years down the line. You realize this reality. And it is today that everybody in this country talk exactly what the PAC has said. And we are marginalized, we are basically being regarded as people who are not normal politically. When we said, look, when you liberate the land, the people, you must also liberate the land so that the people can able to work on the land and develop themselves socially, politically, and culturally. And because of this abnormality of the settlement, how our settlement basically granted us, particularly this section is pain to our people. But what we are happy about today is that the people of this country have now seen it. And we believe that the elections in 2019 will fundamentally be about this question of the land. And the people who have now seen, they felt it, and they will do the right decision.
And I'm going to ask you another question that might upset you, but it seems over the years, and even though the PAC seems to be speaking for the African people, I mean, as you speak, it does sound as though you speak for the majority of people and their views, especially at the moment with regards to the issue of land expropriation. Why have we seen over the years a sort of dwindling support for the PAC? What's happened to the PAC? And I know I'm sort of moving off topic, but it is important while I have you here with us.
Yes, it's a good question. The PAC suffered organizationally. It has organizational setbacks, particularly under democracy. Since 1994, we could not really pick up because there were differences even when we approached the elections. There were divisions. There were those who were saying, no, don't go and negotiate. Others said, when you go to the elections, there were people who were opposed to participate in election. They say we had what you call ultra radicals who were saying no land, no vote. Those kind of slogans, the leadership of the PAC in 1994, instead of campaigning, they were going around to convincing people why they should participate in the election. Now, those things have affected the PAC badly. And once we entered into democracy and where the funding and other factors became issues, and the PAC found itself in the back foot. Now we have to rebuild. And in rebuilding, we have to go through, we have to battle against the forces of nature, put them under control. But we are happy, we are stable, and we are moving forward. Other things that they happen, they are quite normal, they are dynamics, and we hope we are getting there. We have programs, and we have goals, and we are implementing these programs.
All right. Narius Moloto, Ntate, thank you very much for joining us. That's PAC President weighing in on the issue of expropriation, restitution, and repossession of land in South Africa. Of course, a debate that is continuing in the country at the moment. Let's take a short break. Do stay with Afro Breakfast.